CSU, and I basically said, you know, I've been working in radio since I was 14, I've been working at the newspaper for 4 years, I've got lots of internships, I don't need any clubs. And so I didn't join, and graduated and went off to work. Well, 10 years later, new boss, and she walks into my office one day and says to me, we're going to lunch today, get your stuff, we're going to PRSSA. And I'm like, great, cool. I mean, what do you tell your boss? Nah, I don't want to lunch with you. So we went to lunch, and we left, and she said, well, what do you think? And I said, well, some cool people. I mean, you know, didn't really know all these people were in town and what they were doing. It was kind of neat to meet them. And she said, you're going to join, and you're going to become active. I said, yes, ma'am. Fast forward many, many years, and I now serve as the chair of the organization. And there's a reason. What I found was I lost 10 years of professional development and networking and stunted my own career by not doing what we should be doing naturally as PR professionals, and that's networking and building a community of people who can help you with resources. Since that time, I have helped numerous clients and numerous friends with their work. Perfect example is I'm sitting in Knoxville, Tennessee, and I get a phone call. And it's John Devaney, who has an agency in New Orleans. And their client is Ruth's Chris Steakhouse. Not a bad client to have, pretty fun. Mm-hmm. Well, we had a local restaurant that had gone up, and they'd closed. And Ruth's Chris had bought their property. It's right on the river, right by the UT Stadium, prime location, great, great venue. Ruth's Chris bought it. Well, there were all these rumors about the whole deal, that they were going to have to pay taxes, and they got a sweetheart deal from the county, and all of this stuff. Well, he's calling me at 10 o'clock in the morning, and he says, we hear that there's going to be basically a protest at the commissioners meeting tonight, and that they're going to basically be saying all this stuff about Ruth's Chris, which isn't true about the contract. He said, do you have anybody that can be at the meeting for us? And I said, absolutely. And I said, and if you have the information on the real deal with Ruth's Chris that you can reveal, get it to me, and we'll make sure that it gets. Well, by noon, we had basically hired somebody. We had the information in their hand. They had relationships with the media in town. They had sat across the desk with the 3 major TV stations and the major newspaper, explained to them what was going on with the contract, gave them copies of the contract, and that night at the commission meeting, not a single media showed up. So just because he knew me from PRSSA, we'd served together on the national board, saved his company hundreds of dollars, if not thousands of dollars, plus bad press, plus renegotiating probably contracts that they had already negotiated, because he had one contact in town who he could go to and say, hook me up. And basically that's what it was. So it's about it. It's a networking opportunity. All of you are thinking about your first job and, well, what am I going to do? But what you don't realize is you're just starting to, right now, with the people that you're in class with the professionals that you meet from things like Engage, or coming to the PRSSA meetings, or coming to these meetings. You're building your network of people that are going to help you professionally. And we were sitting at dinner tonight, and one of the students said, "Oh, talk about your job tonight. You have such a cool job." And I do have a cool job, and you know, my daughter keeps saying, "Well, how do I get your job?" And I said, "Well, you work really hard for 33 years, and then you get a job like this." But it really comes from a different standpoint. It came from my networking. My former job, as you heard, was doing environmental work, and when you're going to dispose of chemical weapons or nuclear waste, you really don't put it in really nice, picturesque garden spots. It gets buried in desolate places that no one wants to go to. So for like 17 years, that's where I got to visit. And I tell the story that, you know, I went to places where there were no chain restaurants and no chain hotels. It was basically places you didn't really want to go to. And we were sitting at one of these places. We had a public meeting in Umatilla, Oregon, which is really in the desert part of Oregon. Portland's really pretty, lots of rain. You go to the other end of the state, it's a desert. That's where they put chemical weapons to store them for 60 years. So we're sitting in this hotel, in their restaurant, and we've been there for 3 days, and we have another public meeting, and I had with me a student that I had hired right out of college, and she had been working for me at that point for almost 10 years. She looked at me and she said, "Really, in 10 years, do you want to be doing this still?" And I said, "No, you know what? I think I want to be working for HGTV. And it was literally just one of those things you say off of the top of your head. But there was some premise to it, because HGTV was in Knoxville, Tennessee, which was where the companies that I'd worked with were based. So I was aware of the network. I'd watched it build up. I knew what it was in town. And I knew what kind of a company Scripps Networks, EW Scripps was. So there was an inkling there of, I'd like to do that. But also knowing that I'm in government, environmental, public affairs, that's a stretch. Well, long story short, when I decided after 17 years that I was going to move out of this and start something else, I went out to my network and basically said to people, my job ends the end of September, the end of the government fiscal year, and October 1, I need a new job. So folks, get on it. And basically that's what I said. Y'all owe me, I've earned equity here, pay back. So, and it was great. I mean, it was lighthearted, but it really was meaningful. I mean, I really was asking people to say, if you hear of something, let me know, because I need a new job. So, middle of August, I'm driving from Washington, D.C. to Knoxville, which is a very, very, very long stretch of I-81 in Virginia. A very, very long stretch that just keeps going. And my cell phone rings, and it's one of my network. And it was a person that I had 5 years earlier. He had called me up when I was president of the Knoxville PRSSA chapter. I'm in Atlanta, you don't know me, but I really want to move to Knoxville. My grandparents' house is for sale, and I've always wanted to live in it. And they sold it years ago, but the new owners are selling it, and I want to buy it, but I have to have a job. Can you help me? So I helped him get a job. And then we helped him get another job, because that first job wasn't such a great job. And then I got him involved in PRSA, and he basically got integrated into the community. So he calls me on the phone, I pick it up, he says, I've got your job for you. And I said, great, what would that be? And he said, DIY, Do-It-Yourself Network, which is one of the 5 networks that Scripps owned at the time, is hiring a director of public relations, because they're going to go into ratings and they need to start a press push. So they're hiring this person to do that, and you'd be perfect. And I said, Dan, what makes you think that they're going to think somebody who's been doing chemical weapons disposal and nuclear waste storage can do TV? And he said, you can do it. I said, I know I can do it, but do they? Well, what he did for me is he got me the interview.